How's it going, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Untold Ireland. Now today, guys, we have the start of a new series for you called Untold Exposé, where we'll be discussing some of the challenges facing our lovely little island. The subject of today's video are Ireland's inshore fishermen, the backbone of our coastal communities, yet they face unprecedented challenges. Today we're going to be exploring the hardships of an industry fighting for survival. To understand the roots of the crisis, we need to go back to where it all began. Joining us today is Eddie Moore, one of the directors of NIFA, the National Inshore Fishermen Association, and a long-time inshore fisherman himself from the lovely Dingle. In the early 2000s, inshore fishermen were struggling with limited representation. In response, the Rural Inshore Fisheries Group was created to address the challenges facing small-scale operators, advocating for better access to resources, improved sustainability measures, and stronger support from the government.
Well, given the fact that the inshore industry practically had zero representation other than the few small members over inside, and we'll say a few members would have been through the bigger POs, but as for representation, the inshore lads fishing there, they were in dire need of representation, and I think it was early 2014. I think the minister of the day at that time was Simon Coveney. They came about and they created the regional inshore fishery forums, and I think they've done 6 of those. You have the East Coast, the Southeast, the Southwest, the West, Northwest and the North. So they put members, there's representation on those forums from fishing, the volume of the members are on there from fishing, you have marine tourism, you have angling, you have aquaculture, you have the environment, there's reps from every sector, we'll say, there's representation from everybody on it.
The goal was simple: to ensure that inshore fishermen had a seat at the table in policy decisions that directly impacted their livelihoods. The RIFG helped lay the groundwork for a greater representation and raised awareness for the struggles facing inshore fishermen. Advocating for fairer policies and pushing for sustainable practices, it was instrumental in establishing stronger communication channels between fishermen and policymakers, making a turning point in the battle for inshore fisheries.
Basically what they done then was they took the chair and the vice chair from each one of the RIFFs, and they created what they called them was the National Inshore Fishery Forum. Mm-hmm. And that forum then was to meet a few times a year and meet directly with the department. I should have said there too that BIM done the secretarial work for the forums and also for the National Inshore Forum through Denise Maloney. But basically the forums then they'd meet with the minister, and whatever would come from the regional forums through the national forum, that would actually go before the minister.
Despite the early success of the RIFG, the need for a more structured national body was clear. The government officially established the National Inshore Fisheries Forum, or NIFF for short. The goal was to improve the communication between inshore fishermen, government policymakers, and other stakeholders. NIFF's creation was in direct response to the mounting pressure from inshore fishermen for better representation and more effective management of inshore fisheries. While RIFF gave a platform, NIFF was the next step. It allowed for direct dialogue with government officials, but the progress was slow. There were still gaps, and many of the policies were still skewed in the favour of larger commercial fisheries. One of NIFF's most significant accomplishments was the introduction of the Inshore Fisheries Bill, which aimed to provide greater protections for inshore fishermen, strengthening fisheries management, and clearer regulations around coastal waters. While it was not a perfect solution, NIF's advocacy led to vital improvements in policy and ensured that inshore fisheries were brought to the forefront.
But we found that lobbying the minister, or lobbying the department, or lobbying the government of the day, we couldn't actually really lobby them for financial assistance or stuff like that for fishermen. So a few members of the National Inshore Fishery Forum, a lot of years back there, decided that we create a NIFA, which is the National Inshore Fishermen's Association.
Although NIFF was established to represent the interests of inshore fishermen, many felt that it lacked the bite it needed to fight for their specific needs. This led to the creation of the National Inshore Fishermen's Association, or NIFA for short. NIFA was founded to provide a more direct and forceful voice for fishermen, advocating for policy changes and better representation at national and international levels. They needed something stronger, something that they could really push for the changes that they needed desperately. NIFA was born out of necessity to represent fishermen more effectively. NIFA's focus on lobbying for fairer quotas, better fishing policies, and ensuring more sustainable practices led to the organization's most notable success. One key accomplishment was securing a stronger voice for inshore fishermen in the European Union fishing negotiations, ensuring their concerns were heard at the highest of levels.
Has been a bit of confusion down through the years, like between the two, because they sound very similar. You have NIFF and you have NIFA. They basically both have the same goal, but NIFA now at the moment is a fierce growing organisation, because we're upwards and representing, I suppose, 250, maybe up to 300 boats, which is fishing families, which is fishing businesses. I mean, it's not just a boat, it's you have the boat, you have the owner of the boat, behind any boat owner you have a wife, you have a fishing family. But the potential is there, and the need for representation is there, because the small lads, basically all they want is a fair shake of everything. But down through the years there, when I started fishing here, there were lads queuing up there on the piers to go into boats to go fishing. Now you'd be lucky if there's 2 or 3 young lads around there that are actually willing to go out. It's and I suppose my greatest fear there is the fact that the last of a generation, the knowledge. Yeah. You're going to lose the knowledge transfer. You're going to lose when the older guys are gone and there's no younger guys coming after them. You're going to lose an entire industry. That'd be one of my fears.
Do you think there's any particular reason that the young crowd wouldn't be as interested in the whole fishing?
Well, I mean, why would they? I mean, go back 20 odd years there, I mean, there was a salmon fishery. High percentage of the inshore fleet fished that. There was a gillnet fishery for the winter. Inshore fleet fished that. Yeah. There was bass fishery. There was a spur dog fishery. There was an eel fishery. There was umpteen fisheries, but we lost fishery after fishery after fishery after fishery. I mean, the mackerel fishery, the herring fishery, everything is taken away from the inshore boats. I mean, they have 400 tons of a line caught mackerel fishery. It's not enough. They need more. Basically, why would a young lad have anything to do with a fishery then? I mean, when there's no security, there's no job security. Entire inshore fleet is funneled into one fishery now, and that's the brown crab fishery.
One of the hardest blows to inshore fishermen has been the loss of key fisheries. The Irish pollock industry, once vital to coastal communities, has seen a dramatic decline. Once a cornerstone for inshore fishermen, quota cuts coupled with restrictive policies have almost decimated the fishery. It was a massive blow for generations of fishermen. NIFA, however, worked tirelessly to address the issue, calling for more flexible quotas and better management practices. In turn, their advocacy led to discussions at the EU level, resulting in a slight increase in pollock quotas in 2023, a critical win for the industry.
With the loss of the pollock fishery, we felt that with everybody funneled into the one fishery, that the whole inshore industry was only going one way, and that was the wrong way. So we can see from the influx into the fishery and the landings, they were only heading one direction as well, that we felt that the management is seriously needed in the inshore fishery. We lobbied the then minister, which was Minister McConlogue, back in July of 22, I think, and he was going to put together a brown crab working group. Which actually came together there, and the group was created there in September of 24, and we met for 3 days in September of 24. There was representation on the group from, I believe, from all sectors. NIFA were present, NIFF was present, and other POs were present, and producer organisations. I think nearly everybody was present. The Marine Institute were also there.
Creation of the Brown Crab Working Group, or BCWG for short, formed in 2024 in response to severe decline of brown crab stocks along Ireland's coasts. Brown crabs are a vital resource for small-scale fishermen, but overfishing and poor management led to the decline of the crab's population. The BCWG was created to improve sustainability practices and also developed a series of the best practices for sustainable fishing, which were implemented across the industry.
So we came up with recommendations, and those recommendations are actually gone into the now minister for his approval. I think what's gone in from the group isn't actually strong enough, in my opinion. There needs to be more done, because I suppose the industry doesn't have time. That'll be the problem I'd say there.
How would you think they could go about changing it? That there would be the kind of the safety nets in place that young people would say, hey, maybe being a fisherman might be the job, like I could try get into that. Or
I think the best way of correcting anything is listening to the people that are involved in it. And I think through NIFA there we've been lobbying politicians, governments, ministers, anybody we can. Basically, what we're trying to do is create what I suppose public awareness is the best way of putting it. The fact that we have an industry and we're becoming indigenous, I suppose is the word you'll be looking for, but without the young people and without creating some form of job security, take any young lad now that's actually fishing. We're here today and tis not a great day here. Any young lad that's walking around there, okay, is making no money for the day. Probably spent this whole week with bad weather, this whole winter, I suppose, from January with bad weather. He's not entitled to anything. Like there's no social welfare available to him. There's nothing put in place. There's no structures in place to actually protect these young lads. So they have to go away. They have to go elsewhere to get employment. They'd be foolish to come back.
Another challenge facing inshore fishermen has to be the rising costs and lack of government support. The cost of fishing has risen sharply, with fishermen now facing skyrocketing fuel prices, higher bait costs, and increased equipment expenses. The price they receive for their catch has remained stagnant. NIFA continues to push for financial assistance, better seasonal welfare options, and subsidies for rising costs of operation, including fuel and bait. Their advocacy efforts have led to discussions about introducing direct government support for inshore fishermen.
But the one thing we've seemed to have left behind is the actual cost of the fish. I mean, you go back in, I suppose, the early 80s there, we were getting, I suppose, £3.75 a pound for lobster back then, and I think we're getting, I suppose, today's price. Well, I suppose I'll take the summer price there, maybe a 14-15 euro average price kind of thing for lobster. It has fallen as low as €10 a kilo. The overheads and the costs have skyrocketed, from boat insurance to harbour dues to basic day-to-day running of boats, fuel, bait. I mean, everything is food, groceries, everything is skyrocketed. But the product you're bringing in is, I think it's actually lower now than it was back in the 80s. Price per kilo, like the prices back there were per pound. So if you convert them into kilos and convert the Irish pound into euros, and I'd say you'd have a scary figure when you get to the end of it. Well, it's only going to go one way. Like, it's going to hit a point where it's either viable or it's not viable. It depends on basically how long you're involved in the industry, how much money you owe to banks. I mean, there are young lads there that have serious boats, they have serious loans, they have serious overheads, they have serious everything else, and the market price is staying the same. The amount of stuff they're landing is decreasing. I don't know, it's and there's, I suppose, financial aid or whatever else doesn't seem to actually be there again for the inshore sector.
So really, the entire inshore fishing industry is very close to its last legs. Like,
well, I wouldn't go down that. I wouldn't paint that picture just yet. I mean, if we don't have put some kind of positivity on it, we'd stop tomorrow morning. I mean, the industry is there, but there needs to be, in my opinion, a little bit more urgency.
Bit of change,
and
like,
basically, if people would start by listening to the people that are actually involved in the industry, I think that would go a long way. I don't think any inshore man is out there to put an end to his own industry. People sit down and they listen to the people that are involved in it. Definitely, there is a future there. People need to do some serious thinking about.
There needs to be work put in, and
they need to sit down. They need to come up with a correct management plan. A management plan that's workable by everybody, which is very doable, all right? But basically, you need to listen to the people that are involved in the industry. That'd be my reckoning. I'm not saying I know I have all the answers, I'm not saying I know it all, but I definitely know that people that are involved in the industry for 20, 30, 40 years, some 40 years plus, surely to God, they deserve to be listened to.
For generations, inshore fishing has been more than just a job. It's a tradition, a culture, and a way of life for thousands of Irish families. But without proper support, the future is uncertain. From rising costs of operation to lack of sufficient government aid, the challenges facing the inshore fishermen of Ireland are immense. Today, they face an uphill battle. Now more than ever, they need the support to preserve their traditions, protect our waters, and ensure that future generations can continue this way of life. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching and making it to the end of the video. I'd like to say a huge special thank you to Eddie Moore for joining us today, and Avril Egan over at NIFA for helping set the entire thing up. All of the social medias linked to NIFA will be below in the description. Make sure you check them out, guys. They've got Facebook groups and other ways you can help them out. It's all on their actual website and their social medias, so just make sure you check them out, guys. Show them as much support as you humanly can, because this is important. Tradition, it's something that belongs to Ireland, and to see it go away would be, you know, it wouldn't be right. So I think it's imperative that we show them as much support as possible, guys. All the links down below in the description. As always, all of our links to our social medias are also down below in the description. We will be posting the full Eddie Moore interview tomorrow, so make sure you come back and see that, guys, because obviously we could only use bits and bobs of the interview because today's video was more curated and it had like a message and a purpose. But the full Eddie Moore interview will be coming out tomorrow, so make sure you check that out, guys. I'd like to say a special thank you to all of the creators who let us use their footage in the background of the video. It was instrumental. It saved us a ton of recording, and all of the links to the original videos will be down below in the description. And once again, a huge thank you for letting us use your footage. That's it from me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.